Stampida is a pair of racing CCI wooden roller coasters at PortAventura in Salou, Spain. The ride opened in 1997, so it's well over 20 years old. It's located in the kind of American western section of the park. It's a fun attraction. If you've been to Hershey Park, it's kind of reminiscent of Lightning Racers or Efteling. You have Joris and Draak. But for the most part, I would say that those other two rides are more memorable than this one. I think Stampida does a lot of things well. I very much enjoy how the blue and red sides stay alongside each other almost the whole time. There is one pass where they come at each other, which is pretty cool. But when it comes to the actual layout and the different elements, I wouldn't say it's anything crazy. If you've been on a CCI wooden roller coaster, you know that they often tend to lean towards the banking side of things or the laterals. So it's not like Stampida has a focus on airtime, which is one of the main differences between a ride like this and something like Racer at Kings Island, where it's a pair of racing wooden roller coasters where it's all about the airtime. So in that regard, it does make this ride a little bit more unique. As for the stats, both sides sit at a height of 84 feet. Our max speed is 46 miles per hour. There's over 3,000 feet of track, so by no means does this feel like a short ride. It's worth mentioning that both sides are slightly different. For the most part, they do the same thing. If you've only done one side, I mean, the other feels almost identical. But if you're a coaster enthusiast and want your credits, obviously I would recommend doing both sides. So I'll kind of walk through the ride experience. I first want to start with when you board the trains, because I think this is really the weirdest thing about Stampida. I'm not a huge fan of these trains. They are built by Comeback, which is not really a manufacturer. They have done some trains before. I believe they did the ones on T3. I think the only roller coaster they've ever built is actually at Efteling. And these just feel like very odd restraints. I feel like they're almost reminiscent to El Toro's trains. So if you've been on that attraction, you kind of know what I'm talking about. For Stampida, you have 24 riders per train, 6 cars, each holding 4 passengers. On my most recent visit to the park, we elected to sit in the back car, which is definitely the move. I think this is a backseat ride. The other cool thing about my most recent visit to this park was that I got a Stampida night ride, and it happened to be my favorite experience I'd ever had on this attraction. I know during the summer, it's kind of rare that you ever get to do anything at night here, but if you get the chance, I liked this attraction way more in the dark. It very much had that out of control feeling, and it felt like it was running fast, which you contrast that with my 2018 visit, parts of the ride definitely felt a little sluggish. So if anything, it proved that depending on when you ride it, you will get a fairly different kind of experience. Now, of course, when you leave the station, you have your lift hill. You're going to be able to look directly to the side of you and see the other train going up. This ride does dual every single time, which is awesome because I know, as sad as it sounds, there are some parks out there that do not dual. They're dueling coasters, and it's very upsetting. PortAventura, however, does it right. Stampida, you are guaranteed a racing coaster experience. So right after you come off the lift, you turn to the right and you have your drop. It's not the steepest angle or anything. Honestly, it kind of feels like a ramp, but this is really why I recommend the back row, is because when you're in the back, the front of the train starts to drop as you're still rounding the corner, and so you get yanked down this thing, and it is really fun. The drop was a lot better than I remembered. Following this maneuver, you crest up and then bank to the right, so there's possibility for a little bit of airtime there. The two sides ride alongside each other going to the right, and this is when it goes right next to Tomahawk, which is the park's other wooden roller coaster that is literally located right next to Stampida. Sometimes it's easy to confuse which one is which because they sort of intertwine with each other. It's cool. You'll level out, drop next to the Stampida entrance sign, and rise into a double up. In my opinion, this is the best airtime moment on the ride. The one thing you got to be aware of here, though, is that on this ride, it is possible that your restraint will come down on you further during the ride, during some of those positive G-force moments. So in moments like this, you might inevitably end up stapling yourself. After that is a large bank to the left. You then drop down underneath that double up, this time into a double down, which is cool. Another one of the best moments on Stampida. Next up, you have a tunnel, another turn, and this is when you have that head-on pass, which if you don't do a lot of research going into this attraction, up until this point, you've stayed right alongside that other train. And then if you aren't paying attention, the other train goes away, and now, whoop, it's coming right towards you. It's cool. It's a fun effect. You continue alongside that turn. If you ride this when the attraction's running a bit slower, this is one of those moments when it is possible that you'll be losing a decent amount of speed. Luckily, though, that wasn't too much of an issue last time I rode it, which was nice. I was really impressed with how fast it was running. The two sides were grouped. You drop down into an airtime hill. Now you're underneath the structure. You're riding to the right side of things, still keeping side by side, and that's when you enter the brake run. It's not too rough of an attraction. I wouldn't say it's the smoothest thing, but it's not too rough that it like takes away from your experience. So overall, I think it's a pretty fun ride, but if you had asked me the first time I rode it, I would have told you that I think they should RMC this thing. Following my most recent ride, I'm not sure I still agree with that. I personally don't think that PortAventura would RMC this attraction attraction. I do think that if it got RMC'd, it would be a better ride because the layout does have potential. Out of the wooden roller coasters in Europe that I would like to see RMC, there's a couple other that I think should take priority. An RMC would be awesome at PortAventura, but I also really enjoy having that kind of classic wooden roller coaster feel, and racing alongside another train is pretty fun as well. So for Stampida's final score, I'll be giving it a 6.5 out of 10. There's nothing really wrong with the attraction. I wouldn't say that there are too many wow moments on the ride. I think it does a lot of things well, but nothing that'll really like blow you away. It is definitely a ride at PortAventura that gets overshadowed. So if you have a limited amount of time, I think that you should try to do Stampida if you can. But if you miss it, it's not the end of the world. I think you should definitely prioritize some of the other attractions in the park. But if you are going at night, do try and do Stampida if you can. I did quite enjoy that experience. But those are just my thoughts on Stampida at PortAventura World in Spain. Let me know down in the comments below if you've had the chance to ride this attraction and what do you think? And of course, you can stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and we'll see you next time.